everyone. Welcome to this new episode of Game On. Today we have with us Mr. Rameesh Kailasam, CEO of IndiaTechOrg, which is a industry body comprising of various startups in the tech sector. It is a registered industry body comprising of startup unicorns and investors, as I said. Ramesh has advised several businesses in the tech space, including online gaming, fantasy sports, cryptocurrency, fintech, and edtech. He has 20 plus years of experience in government relations, having worked with the government of Andhra Pradesh, APCO Worldwide, IBM, Oracle, etc. And now he's leading this new body called IndiaTech.org as the CEO. So we'll talk more about the online gaming space in this episode and the recent challenges and problems that the sector has been facing. So welcome, Ramesh ji. Great to have you on Game On.
Thank you, Jay, for having me here.
If you can just give our viewers some context on IndiaTech.org, what it is doing specifically in the online gaming space to begin with, and then we can probably start
Sure.
this question.
Sure. So, IndiaTech.org, we are an industry association, as Jay mentioned. We were set up by the founders of Indian startups. Primarily, they got together to say that there are different issues that different industry associations take, but there are certain things which are unique to founders and investors, which can make that billion dollar dream happen. And for that, there are certain roadblocks, certain regulations that need to be looked at from a strategic standpoint. So, for example, if you look at startups today, every state government, the central government, various industry associations have come up with startup hubs. Now, these are all what you call shoots, which are coming in the right direction for startups to kind of look at job creation rather than job seekers, and in the process also innovating and getting into the new bandwagon, which is the future looking economy of technology and so on. But as you grow and as you become mid stage, as you become bigger stage, as you become unicorns, as you become decacorn, you actually hit the roadblocks at various places which are regulatory in nature, because when you're small, nobody bothers about you. As you start growing big, all the regulations start getting applied on you. And therefore, I'm not talking purely from an operational standpoint, but a simple thing like Indian startups earlier couldn't list in India because listing was an issue. Today, if you see, this year has been a great year.
Yeah.
IndiaTech has been working for the last 3 years to make this third year happen, which is what we are seeing in 2021. We, of course, credit the regulator and government of India for having walked the talk along with us for the past 3 years. But if you look at it, we were the only ones asking for India listing to happen. So that was a strategic move because we believe that wealth creation should happen in India. The second thing that we worked on was to create ease of doing business around regulations, and wrong law being applied to you, an FDI regulation not being applied on you in the wrong way, or for that matter, you are being clubbed with a wrong set of bunch of people when actually you should have a separate law for yourself, or for that matter, saying that I should be applied with that law, but instead you have put me in something else, or you're not even regulating me. So I need a regulation so that you can run your business legitimately from the French player. So all of this led to that. And of course, the third bucket that we work on is what we call as unlocking businesses, where we say that a small policy change can unlock a market for a particular startup. The first thing we started 2 years back was to open up GEM for startups, which is the government e-marketplace, because the many startup founders were of the opinion that we also want to add one large customer apart from you and me who are customers, which is the government as a customer. And there again, there were two kinds of products. One is fixed rate and a flexible rate, and rates that change by the hour or the minute and so on. So we work with GEM to actually, and Ministry of Commerce notified it, and subsequently today we have APIs integration available with GEM for startups and so on. So that's the kind of range of works that we have been engaged in. We work very closely with central government, state government, think tanks, founders, investors, and so on to make this journey happen. Our intent is that what we call as follow the $1 billion dream, and therefore we want to create that dream, and we want to help people achieve that dream in India. And therefore we work on the policy space, and all disruptive technologies, as you know, come in this space. So gaming, crypto are essentially part of that, but we work on a range right from travel, cab hailing, insurance, to electric vehicles, to gaming, crypto, and so on, retail, and so on. So, I mean, I would say we work on close to, if on a scale of 100, if I look at it, gaming and crypto would be 20-30%, but it gets the maximum visibility by media because it is the most newsy thing these days.
Yes.
Of course, the 80% of the work we do does benefit other startups as well. So I thought I'll just leave it at that.
And since we focus mostly on online gaming on Game On, so as you said, it's newsy. It's been in controversy. It's been debated hotly, both. And today, by the way, there was hours of arguments in the Karnataka High Court also on the same thing. Dozens of lawyers and so on. So I want to come to that. That online gaming is a very broad term. It can include a lot of things within its fold. So, what do you think is the categorization under online gaming, and what are the formats or games or things that are legally kosher, and what are the things that are not?
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous question you've asked, Jay, because this is a question which we want governments to ask. And the fundamental thing that, and in fact, I was forced to such an extent that I also did a small video for 3 minutes on another startup platform called Pluck, which is People Like Us Create. It was what you call a storytelling platform, where I created a 3-minute video to explain exactly saying that there are so many categories of games exist. Don't brush all online gaming under the same kind of carpet. You have to look at them individually and differently, and don't mistreat one on the basis of what you are interpreting about the other. So therefore, it's very critical. I think fundamentally, I would say from my universe of what I've seen so far in the online gaming space, there are multiple categories. The first one is, of course, esports, which everyone plays. And esports, again, are subscription-based models. There are also models where you play online, single player, multiplayer, all that kinds. And plus, of course, these are also recognized in your Asian Games and Olympics as a sport and so on, as a demonstration sport and so on. And there are medals that are given, and India has also managed to win some medals in the previous edition. So that's esports for you, where you pay subscriptions, where you might even buy, you do actually even do e-commerce retail in that, because you're buying skins, you're buying capabilities and so on. The next one is online fantasy sports, which of course you know the big names there, your
Yes.
Dream 11s and others of the world, which is what you create your team based on a real world game which is happening, and that OFS cannot be played if a real world game doesn't happen. So which means that if somebody was telling me, oh, pandemic is going on, so it's great business for the online fantasy sports, I said, hang on, I mean, that means you don't understand online fantasy sports. Real world gaming has to happen.
Real world sports has to happen.
Yeah, real sports has to happen. In fact, that's the right word. Any kind of sports, whether it's kabaddi, cricket, or hockey, whatever you take it, that has to be played, because it's their performances and your ability to create the team that makes you win or lose on that. And therefore, your knowledge of the game, your analysis of the player's capability, all of that is paramount importance there. And I've released a white paper on that as well last year. The next category is, in fact, I was figuring out what to name them. And I realized that there are multiple games which are there, which are played right from a Ludo to a Fruit Ninja to anything and everything. And these actually needed a name. So I had coined a name and I had released it. And I wrote to Government of India and also different state governments saying, maybe we call them as online skill-based casual games and sports. The reason I use the word
it's a very long name.
Yeah, so I mean, you have plenty of acronyms by the government as well, so I thought I might as well give one. But it is called OSCGS. And the reason why we chose that, because I had to use the word online, I had to use the word skill, I had to use the word casual, then gaming and sports. So it is online skill-based casual games and sports. And what in this, again, there are different categories that I had to, I mean, when I was doing the research, I found out that you have real world games which are recognized by federation, which are played in the online world today. So
like
for
football,
example, your carom, your chess, your billiards, your snooker, pool, table tennis, you play all of that in the online form. Now that is also an online skill-based casual games and sports, but it is games which are recognized by federations but are in the online world. Here again, I mean, you do need dexterity, you do need those strategic thinking, logic, attention, practice, adroitness, whatever the legal jargons are there to make it through as a game of skill. Then There is another category where you have real world sports which are not recognized by federations, but are in the nature, like you have darts, you have ludos, you have snakes and ladders, you have quizzes, you have Scrabble, Sudoku, and all of that. Now, these are again online sports which are there, which are skill based. But this is another category. The reason I'm demarcating it that is because you had Carom and Federation, Chess Federation, and all that, Snooker Federation, and also I'm trying to demarcate there. Then, so therefore, and here the question often gets debated is it's a game of chance because there's a roll of dice.
So there is this online casual game and sports, and then so we have three esports, fantasy, and this online casual games and sports. Now you're talking of a fourth one.
No, I'm talking about the subcategories within online casual games and sports.
Okay.
So the first subcategory was federation sports like Carom, Snooker, and chess. The second subcategory in the online casual game sports is your snakes and ladders, ludos, what you call Scrabble, Sudokus, and so on. Now here there is a twist to this. The reason because I'm calling them skill, so I have to figure out how to bring skill here. Somebody might say you're rolling a dice, so therefore how is skill involved? So we said, okay, I mean the courts have always held that skill predominance should be there. Yeah. So we said, okay, reduce the dominance of the dice and add elements of probably a quiz or something else to it, which looks like a skill. And then therefore you're reducing the dependency on the chance level. So therefore, in fact, online platforms have tweaked many of their formats to reduce the level of dependency on dice and so on. So that is the second subcategory in OSCs. The third subcategory is where you have games which only exist in virtual world, which don't exist in real world. It could be anything from a Candy Crush to a bubble shooter to a fruit chop to a temple run and so on, which also requires a lot of skill, but they don't exist in real world. That's the third subcategory. The fourth subcategory was those which are card-based games, but which is not rummy and poker, and which are played in closed circles. Could be a game of spades, could be call break, lakdi, gochi, whatever name you call it, solitaire, and all of that.
So those are also skill according to you.
Depending on how the format is, right? Now I'm saying that these are the subcategories in that category. Then you've got what is called, so now all of these games can be PvP, which is player versus player formats, or player versus environment, and different kind, player versus computer. So different formats do exist in this, but overall the essence of these games are that.
And where does poker and rummy fit in?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. So I'm done with online casual. So first I put the first range was esports. Then I put the OFS, online fantasy sports.
Yeah.
Then I put OSCGS, and I brought these categories.
Okay.
And then now I'm keeping rummy and poker out of this.
So that will be the fourth or within the third category?
So that will be the fourth and fifth category.
Okay.
So in the fourth category, I'm putting rummy. In the fifth category, I'm putting poker. Let them fight for their own merits.
But then I have one question. Why are those two not clubbed within the third category?
Yeah. So here is that's a great question. Now I'm
putting card-based. You have put card-based under one category in the third one.
Certain card games which are not rummy.
Yeah. So why this difference?
Why this difference is because this is the most hotly debated stuff. Now, if you look at most of the state governments which are looking at it, they say, oh, online gaming, it's rummy and poker, right? That's been the casual retort. Now, rummy has its own merits. Rummy has been declared as a game of skill. It has also equally got court rulings, and poker is of a different category where, again, there can be huge games of chance, and there can be skill and so on. It's a debatable area. Now, all I'm trying to say to this world of regulation and regulators is, look, you're picking up one name. You're not even analyzing whether it is game of skill or chance. But now you are condemning the whole range, which I just explained to you. This is the universe that exists there. Each of them are different startups were vertically playing in each of these. Some of them are in all of these. Now, somewhere I think this clarity has to emerge, because as I said, I use the term that I'm not against rummy or poker. In fact, each of them have to fight for their own merits and prove it. And I'm all for that. But all I'm saying is, if this distinction doesn't exist in head, you will pick one and ban everybody.
So
and
India Tech is working for all these 5 categories, or
one of the things that we do is we do education to the regulators, because we feel that without informed regulators, you will have distorted regulations. And as all of these are again disruptive ones which have come into the online world, obviously the regulation will always need to do a catch up. The challenge is, of course, that I think one of the biggest fundamental flaws is that when regulators go out to understand these nuances, usually what happens is one tells about less about their good things and tells more negative about the others. And that gives a consolidated perception that if I met 9 people and I got 1 each, then out of 10, I mean, 9 out of 10, I will say that, okay, it's a bad industry. Let all of them are the same.
Yeah.
So it is important that people speak out and say what they are good at and why they are different. And not talk about why others are good or bad about it or anything. And what we are trying to do is dissect this market and say, understand this is the universe, be careful on how you regulate and understand and regulate it, because that applies even for taxation, that even applies for GST and
No,
all of it.
no, I'll come to taxation, but then India Tech is in favor of regulation of all these five categories, or some of these, or
We are that all the startups that are emerging in this space, so long as there is skill predominance and so long as skill is proven and so long as it does not result, I mean, it is, that's why I use the term casual in nature. It should not be a source of livelihood. It should not be addictive in nature. And where the cutoffs and checks and balances are put in place, there should be no reason why this industry, all of this put together, should be looked at from a banning perspective.
right? And state governments, few of them have gone ahead and still banned, overarching ban. Recent one being Karnataka. So, have you had a dialogue with the state governments, and what has been kind of their response to your representations or to your submissions?
See, we have been educating states time and again, those who have banned in the past, those who have banned recently, those who are contemplating banning, including looking at aspects such as online gambling and betting. Now, here is where the catch is. What the pandemic did was it brought a lot of people online.
Yeah.
It also brought the traditional gambling and betting houses online.
Yeah.
And because there was not enough teeth, the state government started tweaking their regulations to say, let me go after online gambling and betting. And in the process, the choice of words led to all of us being covered under it. And that is the unfortunate part. Now, if you look at what Karnataka has done, is Karnataka was looking at this for quite some time. It is not that they came out.
There was a PIL, and it's the same story everywhere. That there is some
so
PIL.
Karnataka was looking at it, and there are triggers of it. In fact, I would say that many of the people who put PILs also need to be equally fully informed on the aspects, because like somebody says that, I mean, I keep meeting a lot of people in this ecosystem. Somebody says that, oh, children are playing around it. Now, many of these platforms, you can't, if you don't have a bank account, if you don't have anything, you can't even open an account and play. Now, which means that either you're misusing your parents' card and your thing, which is a domestic issue. It is not something where the platform is to blame. The platform has to do its due diligence on whether you are 18 plus, whether you have a bank account and all of that. They do all of that. Now, if somebody misrepresents, that's a totally different thing. But I think it's also equally important that everyone in this ecosystem needs to understand what these platforms are, what their rules are. I mean, I'm not saying that fringe players don't exist. Fringe players do exist. But the casualty should not be the major ones who are strictly following the rule and kind of following the book. Apart from that, it's also critically important that governments and regulators are equally able to understand these nuances. And as I said, the cutoff is that it should not be addictive. I mean, we are not for supporting any gambling or betting activity, nor are we supporting anything which is addictive in nature or where it can actually become a source of livelihood for either winnings or ruin. So, I mean, so long as those checks and balance exist, it's all fine.
But so, has there been any reaction? What has been the reaction of state governments to your?
The state governments have been pretty receptive. In fact, post this education process that we have initiated, state governments have come back and said we weren't aware of some of these nuances. Some of them have actually come back and said that we are ready to look into the rules to define some of these out. Can you give us more literature on it? So we have been supplementing literature to various state governments in the past few months.
So you talked about the cutoff, right, between skill and chance, predominance of skill. Now here is the problem that I was hearing the Advocate General and Karnataka Chief Minister and a lot of the other people who have a say in these things in the government. And here is what they were saying. It's a very thin line various kind of innovations are happening. There are games which are coming in. For example, I was seeing one games on one of the leading platforms where it's just a modified version of roulette, which they call there is some science behind it, but I could not see any science behind it, honestly. And it was just a spin of numbers. So when these kind of things are coming up, when startups are coming up, innovation is happening where people are calling themselves skilled, but they are not. And the government cannot, sit and analyze each game, each format on each platform happening 24/7, right? So they say, what do we do? What option do we have? We are not going to sit and analyze everything. Wherever there is money involved, taking of money, we are going ahead and banning it. So what do you think is the solution to this question of the government?
See, I mean, if I wear my government hat, certainly administratively it is not possible to
Absolutely. And
micromanage.
I also tend to agree that they can't go and check each format every
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So the ideal way out is for the industries to get together in some form of self-regulation where certain parameters are predefined and certain tests are put to. I mean, you could have some mathematical algorithm or tests or something to prove that you've made the bar and so on. Whether you look at advertising standards council, which comes with advertisements on, government doesn't micromanage to say, oh, you're advertising, you're doing this or that. Now, if you look at what they did in the case of OTT, again, I mean, it is humanly impossible for the censor board to censor every production that is coming in, right? I mean, you're not able to have time for your mainline movies. You see the amount of content that is generated, it's pretty difficult to. So, which means that there is a code where they've prescribed a self-regulation code and they've left it to the industry to kind of comply with that. Now, same thing applies here. Massive number of games, different formats coming in. Now, who will micromanage, right? Is a task. So, like if you look at the online fantasy space, they've managed to create a body called FIFS where they are saying that they have a code. Their AIGF has a code. All of them are coming up with codes and signatories to that, whatever membership or whoever it is, are supposed to abide by that. And basically, the association concerned has to also ensure that they are abiding by it. In the process, then what you can do is you're creating a format of self-regulation which is backed by some legitimacy. Now, currently, that legitimacy has to be brought in. All we are saying as India Tech is that whether a state government or a central government goes for it, it should say, okay, you've got a self-regulatory body. This is your code of conduct. People who abide by it and people who are signatories to it are fine. Others are open for us to go after, which means that at least you are reducing the administrative nightmare for the government to go after and whipping everybody on the street, because you know that there is a particular group which is at least adhering to or seeming to adhere to some self-imposed code of conduct and regulation. So I think it has to be a combination. It cannot be, as I said, micromanaging. At the same time, for the industry also, it's equally important not to cross the line. But unless government brings this ring or clarity, you will always have a tendency that you and I are abiding by the rules, but some newbie who has come is not abiding by the rules, and his
But
business is growing.
but this is the problem, right, with self-regulation. That who will punish the guys who are the defaulters? There is no legal backing, no policing powers, no government powers, and secondly, self-regulation also has challenges in terms of independence, sanctity, and whether there are certain vested interests involved within those bodies. So those kind of things are also there in self-regulation. So honestly, I don't know if self-regulation is going to be a long-term solution.
No, so self-regulation backed by
Yeah,
legitimate backing of the government is what I am pushing for. Saying that self-regulation on its own will not solve the problem, but that self-regulation should be given legitimacy by certain regulations, which will have an oversight mechanism on the self-regulation.
yes,
Right. That
probably.
is the way forward for it. But at the same time, the government cannot micromanage. Neither can the industry start whipping anybody and everybody. So the best way out is government says, here is the legitimacy granted, provided you comply with this and follow a self-regulatory body and show us some compliance of that. And the self-regulatory body is able to demonstrate that. Those who are outside the scope of this self-regulation and others are fringe players, and therefore, technically, the government has freedom to go after. Rather than doing a complete ban where the self-regulated ones and the non-ones, all of them are seen in the same picture.
Right. The other thing that has been talked about is the numbers, right? The potential of the industry and the taxation potential, jobs potential, and so on. Can you throw us some numbers of where this industry is headed if given the right form of backing and regulation?
See, I mean, if you look at, I mean, I was doing this study on online fantasy sports. Now,
Yeah.
that is one industry where I'm seeing huge amount of significant growth, because at the end of the day, if you look at the numbers and the valuation of these companies engaged in that, that has run into billions of dollars,
Yes.
right? And that's also, I mean, the market size is somewhere they're saying anywhere between 30 to 35,000 crores. That's the range they are throwing for that. And apart from that, of course, if you see, strategic investments have come in into that particular sector. You've got high profile international investors who have invested in it. And apart from that, of course, I think one of the fundamental thing that is driving growth of this industry is low cost of mobiles and smartphone penetration, plus of course access to internet, which has phenomenally contributed to it. So industry is growing pretty, I mean, in a very fast fashion. Employment, both direct and indirect, is also coming equally. I mean, if I take the case of online fantasy sports, for example, you have now people who are coming as and becoming self-appointed coaches, who are telling people, okay, this is how this guy is, this is how he plays in this turf, this is his weakness, and all of it, based on analysis of the past. So people are also getting, I mean, kind of self-employment out of it. So industry does have a great potential currently. I think they have some 5,000 plus already, and they say there are some 7,000 plus indirect jobs which have been created. And overall, I think what they're saying is that in terms of growth, if you look at it, I mean, they're saying that roughly they're expecting it to be 1,65,000 crore market by 2025, something of that sort.
That's a huge number.
It's a huge number, and this is just online fantasy sports. If you take the OSCGS category, that's doing a catch up now, because largely, if you look at it, by the way, still, I'm qualifying here, whether it's OFS or others, 80% of the market still plays for free. It's just 10 to 20%, which actually puts money. Large chunk of the market is still playing those freebies, free versions, which are available. And that is slightly changing. Ticket sizes are as low as I would say, I wrote in the OFS paper, it's the cost of a samosa or a bread pakoda or whatever. I mean, people put as low as 20 bucks, 25 bucks, 30 bucks, and all that. And there are some who put 100 bucks and so on. So ticket sizes are pretty low, and that has led to huge volumes, and that has led to large number of people being part of it.
Right. So we are slightly running out of time, but I had two quick questions, last ones for you. One is, as we know, there is a GOM formed for looking at the GST issues on online gaming. And, there is a debate going on both within the government and outside. What should be the tax rate? How should it be taxed? What has been your recommendation?
So our recommendation has been that, see, currently it is being, I'm giving a platform, I'm giving a service, and there are two people playing in it. Ideally, technically, it should, currently it is at 18% as a service, technology as a service coming in. Ideally, it should have been 18. Now, the GOM has been formed where they're looking at horse racing, they're looking at online gambling and betting, and they're also looking at online gaming.
Yeah.
There, ideally, if you look at it, I had put across 2-3 conditions which should be followed, and that is purely as a recommendation that if you see there are people who mix money, your money coming in, I put the whole thing, and then I'm also taking my platform fee, I'm also giving winnings out of the account. That should not be allowed. Ideally, people should either maintain an escrow or a clearly demarcated bank account or a clearly demarcated wallet or any instrument that allows you to demonstrate demarcation, saying that this is how the pool money came in. It was sitting there. After the whole event got over, it was distributed from that account back to all the people. And whatever was left over as my platform fee, I've taken as my platform fee. In this process now, when that clear demarcation exists, ideally GST should be on the platform fee. Now, whether it is 18 or 28 depends on a lot of debates, because there are games of skill, there are games of chance. Somebody might say it is entertainment. I think I blame part of the industry for calling itself entertainment, because the moment you say entertainment, government says, Acha, I'll put you in entertainment tax category, 28% or whatever.
But so surely revenue augmentation in these times is also important for the government. So the government may not be wrong in saying 28.
Yes. So our recommendation technically has been 18%. And we have said that where there is clear demarcation of demonstrated that the platform fee is separate from the whole thing. And we have also recommended that don't look at specifying platform fee, because platform fee can be as low as 1 to 2% to as high as 20-25%. We are not for prescribing a slab for platform fee on who should do what business. But whatever is the platform fee, where clear demarcation is available, apply GST on that. This is the fundamental thumb rule we have put in. Ideally, we have recommended 18% to the government to say whatever is being practiced, let it continue.
And this is for all categories, the OFS, the casual skill-based games, as well as
absolutely for everything, so long as demarcation is skill-based, and so far as demarcation of bank and accounting thing is demonstrated.
Yeah, I think the important question is more to do with the manner in which they are going to impose rather than the percentage. The percentage is slightly secondary, and it depends on, post-COVID. Obviously, government will have its own reasons to,
Yes.
when they are increasing tax on everything. So yeah. Now, final question on this segment is, you've talked about engaging with states and the difficulty and the self-regulation framework. But what, according to, when there is a whole center versus state debate also going on, right? That who has the power? There was hours of discussion in court also on the same thing. So, what, according to you, in an ideal scenario, would be a regulatory framework according to you? And it could be deriving from any international experience as well, or totally unique to India.
See, ideally, in the startup space, I keep reiterating this, that maybe India should take the lead, and that should be the international best practice, because we are growing fast. We are debating on these a lot as a nation, and we are also looking at ways and means to regulate. So there is no, I would say, clear international best practice that we should be following. We should be creating those, and in the process, if you look at center versus state, there are different ways to look at it. For example, I was working earlier in the direct selling space, where I was trying to push for a nationally prescribed guideline, which is adopted by states, because your Consumer Protection Act didn't have the capability or the flexibility, the earlier one, to actually prescribe something. And that was, again, a challenging area for regulation. So ideally, the center should prescribe and the states should adopt, should have been the way to ensure there is a uniform format. I mean, you can have all the 36, 37 states and UTs, whatever are there, saying, okay, this is a nationally prescribed format. We will do our tweaks to accommodate whatever is required in our state sensitivities and so on. But ideally, it should be uniform. You can't be having 36 or 37 different versions of it. I mean, you will be running a firm of lawyers and accountants. You'll not be running an innovative startup firm then. So therefore, I think it's important that there should be something which is nationally prescribed but adopted by states, because national jurisdiction over this seems limited, is what the debate has been on a range of these issues. However, I would like to qualify that maybe for the esports and of course certain sports which are recognized by federations, they could be a way where sports ministry could take the lead and say, okay, because these are of this type, and provided you adhere to the rules which are followed in real world, maybe there could be way out. But that is just, a small thing. The larger thing is that the center should, in consultation with states, come out with it. So if you look at what Niti Aayog had earlier done, is they had come up with the OFS 8 guiding principles. Yeah. Ideally, they should come out with guiding principles at least and say that, okay, states, use this to draft your own regulation.
Thank you very much for your for this discussion and for your time. We'll be back again with another episode of Game On. If you like this conversation, do hit the bell icon and subscribe. And do subscribe to our social media pages also given in the link description. Thank you very much once again, Rameesh.